tell me about yourself. So now you know what I'm majoring in and my latest work experience. But what I think is also really important about myself is the experience I made in my time abroad in New Zealand. Because after I got my A level, I wasn't really prepared for university. I didn't feel quite ready to go to university. I was very young and not sure about what to study. And then on the other hand, I was always into traveling. I really enjoyed going to holidays with my parents, but I wasn't the type that wanted to stay in the hotel for 2 weeks straight. I always wanted to get out and see new people and meet new people, see new places. So I decided to go to New Zealand for 7 months and live there. And therefore, there was a lot of preparation to be done. I had to apply for visas, I had to book flights, and of course, I needed to earn some money because I wanted to be independent. So I didn't want to rely on my parents' money. Therefore, I worked in the industries for about 2 weeks, about 8 weeks straight, and gained a lot of money there. I was doing 6 days a week and also including night shifts. And then I also booked my accommodation for Christchurch, a smaller city in New Zealand that is actually also quite famous. And yeah, I planned to stay there 2 weeks to get set in New Zealand. And then it was the beginning of November, and apparently I had my flight already. And then in New Zealand, I had to overcome some more challenges like buying a car and opening up a bank account. But I ended managing all of these by my own. And after I landed, I would possibly say that the best time of my life began, and also the most influential time of my life began, because I have overcome so many challenges so far and gained so many experience that really prepared me of what is coming next. And now I kind of have the same feeling about this internship here at Google. I think it can bring me again a step forward, let me make or gives me a lot of more experience and challenges that I have to overcome, and prepares me even more about the actual work life that is coming towards me. Okay, so what are your strengths? Back when I was a child, my parent used to work a lot, or actually my father used to work a lot, and then my mother at a certain point always started working full time. So I did not see them anymore during the day. And moreover, they weren't used to the German school system because they grew up in Romania, a country in the east of Europe, and only came to Germany in 1998. So they did not go to school in Germany and were not used to the German school system. So they could not help me during my time after elementary school. Of course, they could help me in elementary school because it was very basic. But after that, they couldn't quite help me anymore. So I had to become independent at a very young age. And when it came to school, I had to become very independent. Or when it came to getting to my football training, I always had to take care that I get a ride. Or I even had to take care of my younger brother when it came to his homework or his problems that he has. And I think this independence made me develop a lot of important traits, like adapting to things really quick and always finding a solution, even though it was not meant to be that way. For example, at my last job at Siemens, I got a comment from my supervisor that he really likes the way I work and handle things, because he always gave me tasks with basically no framework at all. Because even though he had like kind of ideas in his mind, he gave me this task to see how I handle them. And I was quite surprised by the feedback, because he said that he really likes the way I handle this task, because I always came up with solutions or even several ideas. So I prepare more solutions or more ways to do it. And that is why I would consider myself as a person that can learn really quick and adapt to situations really quick, and can especially create solutions by his own. So, what are your weaknesses? What I think is also really important about myself is the experience I made in my time abroad in New Zealand. Because after I got my A level, I did not feel ready for university. I was very young and not so sure about what to study. And I was also always into traveling. I really enjoyed the holidays I had with my parents, seeing new places and meeting new people. So I decided for myself, okay, I need to make some more experience. I want to go and live in New Zealand for 7 months. And so I decided to go there. And therefore, a lot of preparation was necessary. I had to apply for visas, I had to book flights, and of course, earn some money because I didn't want to take money from my parents. Therefore, I worked in the industries for 8 weeks straight, doing 6 days a week, including night shifts and stuff. And then I also booked my accommodation in Christchurch, a smaller city in New Zealand that is actually also quite famous, where I planned to stay my first 2 weeks. And then I already had my flight in the beginning of November. And of course, there I had to overcome some more challenges like buying a car and opening up a bank account. But I ended managing all of them by my own. But all of these challenges and decisions I had to make came with a twist. I always had to trust people to some point. Because the car in New Zealand, I bought it from a private person. So basically, I had no insurance at all, and I could not give it back after I bought it. And the person who sold it to me, he was very good in talking and especially very good in selling. So he knew what he was talking about, and he was also offering me like other special services, like getting out the back seats and putting in a wooden framework that allows me to sleep in the car. And I ended up trusting him, so I bought the cars, even though I had no idea about cars at this point, because it was my first owned car and I only got my driver's license a few weeks ago. But still, I ended up buying the car, and already after a few weeks, basically after 2 or 3 weeks, I already struggled with the car. It was struggling going up the hill, and of course, New Zealand there are a lot of mountains in New Zealand, so also a lot of steep roads and stuff. And there was coming like kind of steam, dust, smoke was coming out of the car. And yeah, it was an older car, of course. It was from 1995, I think, but still, I mean, I kind of have to trust him with that it runs at least some years. And yeah, but it was my fault. I trusted him with that. And yeah, but still, the car ended up running until the end of my stay. But still, it could have ended more badly, and I could really fall on my nose. So after I had this experience, and I had it a few times also with other things like with my job that I also had in New Zealand, they promised me that I still get some payment a few weeks after. But at that point, I was already at the other end of the country, and I didn't receive any money anymore. And yeah, so it could have ended a lot worse with trusting people, but by now I've been a bit luckier. So where do I see myself in 5 years? In 5 years, I see myself in a major company. Of course, I do not know which company yet exactly it's going to be, but I will get some experience through more working student jobs and more internships that I'm planning to do. And already during my last years, I was aware about the fact that I do not feel ready yet for going to university because I felt very young and unexperienced regarding certain essential skills. So I decided to go and live in New Zealand for 7 months. And even in my time in New Zealand, I was already thinking about my majors and internships that I want to do when I come back to Germany. And not only that, I was always planning ahead. And also during my time in New Zealand, I was also always having my key things that I want to do in New Zealand. I always had them in my mind. By the time I landed, I already knew that I was working in a vineyard and in about a month. And during my work in the vineyard, I was aware about the fact that I was going to work in an apple packing company a few weeks later. Of course, I also do take a lot of spontaneous decisions when I feel like it or something like that. Or if I like a certain place, then I was going to stay there longer. But I always had these key goals in my mind, as I already said, that I want to achieve. So I decided to live in New Zealand for 7 months, and I decided to apply for an internship at a major company like Google. That is always why I see myself working at a major company like Google. It is in 5 years. Because at that point, I will finish my master's studies and I've done relevant internships that open me the door to work in a major company like Google or Amazon, for example. Okay, are you good in dealing with change? I think I can deal with change and can adapt quickly because back when I was a child, my parents used to work a lot. Or actually, my father worked a lot, but then at a certain point, my mother also got a full-time job and then she was also working a lot. So I did not see them during the day. So I had to become independent at a very young age when it came to school or getting a ride to my football training or even taking care of my younger brother about his homework at school or his problems. Moreover, my parents were not used to the German school system because they grew up in Romania until they came to Germany in 1998. So, as already said, they did not go to school in Germany. They were not used to the German school system and what they teach in German schools. So they could not help me with any school-related things after I came out of elementary school, of course, because what you learn in elementary school is very basic, and they were able to help me there. And yes, and I think this independence that I got made me develop a lot of important traits, like dealing good with change and adapting to things really quick, and always finding a solution, even though it is not the way that it was meant to be. For example, at my last job, I got a comment from my supervisor that he really likes the way I work and handle things. Because he always gives me tasks with basically no framework conditions. Even though he had those in his mind, he made it on purpose. He wanted to see how I can handle with that. And so quite surprisingly for me, I got the feedback that he liked the way I handle these tasks because I always came up with my own solutions, with my own ways of doing it. And I even prepared like two solutions or two kind of slides in a presentation that he can choose from. So I would consider myself as a person that can learn and adapt to situations really quick and therefore deal good with change. Do you work well under pressure? Yes, I would say that I can work really well under pressure. And what I think brought me to that thinking is the experience I made in my time in New Zealand. Because after I got my A level, I did not feel ready for university. I was very young and unexperienced and wasn't sure about what to study. And I was always into traveling, so I decided to live in New Zealand for 7 months. And therefore, a lot of preparation was necessary. So I had to apply for a visa, book flights, and of course, earn some money because I wanted to be independent from my parents, so that I didn't want to receive any money from them. And therefore, I worked in the industries for about 8 weeks straight, making 6 days a week, including night shifts. And then I booked also accommodation in Christchurch, a country in New Zealand, the city where I planned to stay for the first 2 weeks to get set in New Zealand. And then it was already November and I had my flight and I had to overcome some more challenges after I landed, like buying a car and opening up a bank account and looking for work. But I ended up managing all of that. And after I landed, possibly the best time of my life began, and also the most influential time of my life began. I overcome so many challenges and gained so many experiences that really prepared me for what is coming next. And I had to take a lot of decisions under pressure and was in a lot of situations where I was under pressure. But I kind of always managed to get things done and also under pressure. What even got me to the thinking that I don't even say anymore that I'm under pressure because the situation is just what it is and you cannot change it. At least you cannot change it in the short term. So you have to adapt to that. And as I already mentioned, I can deal good with change and adapt real quick, what also allows me to work well under so-called pressure. How do you make important decisions? I normally make all the important decisions by myself. For example, it was only me that was aware about the fact that I'm not ready to go to university or that I don't feel ready to go to university after I finished school, because I felt very young and unexperienced regarding certain essential skills that I would consider as necessary when you want to go to university, when you want to move to another city to study there. So I decided to go and live in New Zealand for 7 months. Of course, my parents had second thoughts about that in the beginning, but it was my decisions. And I wanted to do that, so they kind of accepted it. And also, when it comes to my choices regarding my stay, it was my idea, also my idea to buy a car. It was also my idea to sleep in a car for 7 months. And it was my decisions to work in a vineyard in an apple packing company. Of course, I always think about important decisions like going to New Zealand or what to study. And of course, not every decision was or is best. But if I take the decision and nobody else kind of talks me into it, I can live with that, even if the decision was bad. But of course, I also take spontaneous decisions when I feel like something or I like a certain place. For example, in New Zealand, I just stayed here for a few more days. But I always have these key goals in my mind that I want to achieve. And it's not like that I do not talk to anyone about my decisions. When I have the feeling that another person has experience or good ideas regarding a specific topic, I will talk to them about it. For example, with my father, when it comes to like work-related decisions or even life-related decisions, like I don't know, like for insurance or something like that, I will talk to him, because I think he made some really good decisions regarding work and like life in general. So I will talk with him about things like that. Why would we hire you? I think you should hire me because I think I differ a lot from all the others applicants. Because back when I was a child, my parents used to work a lot, or my father used to work a lot, but at some point my mother also started working a lot. So I did not see them during the day. Moreover, they weren't used to the German school system because they grew up in Romania until they came to Germany in 1998. So they did not go to school in Germany, and therefore were not used to the school system in Germany. So they could not help me with any school-related topics. So I had to become independent at a very young age and help myself regarding school-related topics, or find myself a ride to get to football training, or even take care of my younger brother when it came to homework or his problems. And I think this independence made me develop a lot of important traits, like adapting to things really quick and always finding a solution, even though it was not meant to be made that way. And coming back to my story about New Zealand, I think I also made some unique experiences there that made me the person I am right now and really prepared me for life. And also, for example, at my last job, I got the feedback from my supervisor that he really likes the way that I work and handle things, because he always gives me tasks with basically no framework conditions, even though he had some things in his mind, like how you could do it or how he wants it to be done. But he wanted to see how I can handle that. And I got the feedback that he likes the way I handle tasks. And it was quite surprising to me because I didn't know that before. Because I always came up with a solution or an idea, or even several ideas that you can choose one or ways to do it. So generally saying, I consider myself as a person that brings a lot of experience in life, but also in work at a very young age, and a person that can learn and adapt to situations really quick and create a high quality solution by its own.